Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of the Enlightening Series of the Realize the World Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about meditation. If you listen to episode 4 from last week, we discussed the Noble Eightfold Path, and two of the last items we discussed on that subject were mindfulness and meditation. So today I want to dedicate an entire episode to meditation. Um, Meditation is actually what brings me here today. Um, I started meditating back in January of this year, which we only have a couple days left. It's actually December 27th, um, Friday. So, anyways, I started meditating this year, January 26th. And after that, things just I don't want to say they took off for me, but the the changes just started happening. For the longest time, I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to do a bunch of things. Um, and after I started meditating, I basically got out of my own way so that I could do those things. Okay? And so I meditations I don't, what's the word? It's fascinating in that the simple breathing exercise for the purpose of today's discussion, I'm going to be discussing mindfulness meditation. I clarify that because in mindfulness meditation, you do focus on your breath. In other forms of meditation, you may focus on something else. So, but yeah, just concentrating on your breath and essentially not killing your thoughts, but stopping them and going back to your breath. That's the exercise of meditation. Um, and it works for me. Um, you can look around on the internet. There's tons of people that it works for, and that it brings them an inner peace. It helped found who they are today. Um, and what I find most interesting is a lot of businessmen, not businessmen, but business people, men and women. Um, they also meditate. They'll meditate before they go into meetings or before they have to make crucial decisions. And you can just, and that point there just tells you that even though they might not have a dedicated practice, um, meditation helps bring clarity to thinking. Okay. Um, so mindfulness meditation. Uh, Mindfulness meditation is performed, well, in I how do I want to put this? It's you can do meditation in whatever position you find most comfortable for you. Um, if you look on the internet, and the most common position is the seating or being seated, sitting erect with your back not against anything. That's like the Buddha statues, right? But you you could do it lying down. That's what I did the first maybe 6 months because I had a desk job. I was very out of shape. I had no core muscles, no real back muscles, and I would be sore. Um, Not even sore, but I'd start getting those muscle aches um, within minutes, the first few minutes. So I started it laying down, um, and that's perfectly fine. the posture is not necessarily part of the exercise, although it is critical so that you don't cause distractions from being uncomfortable, or if you're laying down or sitting against something, maybe there's a fan and it's blowing a string on you. That can be distracting. So the main focus on posture is so that you don't activate your touch senses anywhere, in my eyes at least. Um, and then as far as let's see, the focal point for mindfulness meditation, that's going to be your breath. Um, Now, I published a quick start meditation guide on the blog website for Realize the World. Actually published it yesterday. Um, and I describe a process in there for um, finding that sensation of your breath through your nostril. Um, it's really short. I might as well go over it here. But if you forcefully breathe out and in through your nose, you'll feel a certain point within your nostrils, where the air, uh, I guess where you can feel the air most, because obviously the air is going to touch the entire nostril. But there's a point that will stand out when you do breathe in and out forcefully. That sensation would be the focal point for mindfulness meditation. Um, Now, that's more just for getting started. I will say, as I progressed into meditation, um, you do want to do diaphragmatic breathing um, when you're doing these breathing exercises. However, if you don't know how to do it, I would recommend you learn that outside of meditation. That way, you're not trying to meditate and learn to breathe using your diaphragm at the same time. And you might be struggling or having issues identifying why you can't meditate when you're trying uh, two different things at once, right? But yeah, for me, so as I progressed, I developed an inner awareness of my diaphragm, and so sometimes I only focus on my the breathing that's happening within my torso, so to say. But I do try to reincorporate the breathing sensation through the nostril, um, trying to keep it all one flow. But I would say that inner awareness is more dominant than the external awareness. So take that for what it's worth. I'm not even an entire year into my journey, and that I could have new meditation tips next month or a year from now. Um, it's all about really finding what works for you, and that I don't want to say to take the general idea of meditation and then do what works for you, but in essence, with what I realized, I mean, and I say with what I realized through my practice, um, it it's an exploration game, and so you pick things up along the way, and you just find what works. Um, I'm sure a lot of us have tried something new, maybe at work or school or your own hobby, and you may have gone against the grain of what the general consensus is of how to do it, and that you found the way that works for you. That's kind of what I'm saying here, and that it's normal. It's perfectly normal. You can't necessarily black and white transcript everything in life. Um, and so, with even like with what the Buddha wrote 2,600 years ago, it's been translated, and there are different variations of the translation. So, uh, we won't go down into that rabbit hole, but that just goes to show you, it's really about perspective and relativity. So, yeah, that's just a brief uh, overview of mindfulness meditation. If you've been listening to this podcast and or just to this episode and you're curious about meditation, I encourage you to check out the blog site. Currently, the URL is realizetheworld.wordpress.com. I'm sure if you Google it, that'll be easier to find. But check that quick start guide out. Try it out. Um, see what you get from meditation. Um, and you might not get nothing. And I do mention in that guide, but the results aren't overnight. So you kind of gotta give it a try, um, and see what it does. So me myself, I have tried two other forms of meditation, and that's going to be transcendental meditation, often referred to as TM, and then Zazen meditation. The main difference in those two forms of meditation are your focal points. And so in transcendental meditation, you are going to be focusing on a mantra. A mantra is something you basically repeat, but you repeat it without meaning. I didn't read, I listened to a Russell Simmons book, and that's actually where I got the transcendental meditation, I guess, how to from. And he uses the word rum. Now, I know in Buddhism they use, not sure of the word, but there's certain chants that they do that have context and meaning. So I don't know if rum is one of them. Um, but when you do it, again, it's just a focal point. So when you're repeating to yourself, rum, 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 each time you say that, you kind of killing any thoughts from arising, although they still will. But I would say transcendental meditations, in my experience, is a little easier than the mindfulness meditation, as far as my effort. Um, and I ended up going back. I tried to alternate, do some transcendental and then do some mindfulness throughout the week. And I ultimately just went back to mindfulness because of the mindfulness it helps cultivate. Um, so in Zazen meditation, it's actually pretty interesting. So there's the postures, I would say more critical. Not, I don't know. The posture is different though. It's different in Zazen, and the main thing is that you meditate with your eyes open in Zazen meditation. Um, so when you have when you're meditating with your eyes closed and you're dealing with distractions like with noises, um, you don't make out what that noise is. You simply observe it. And the same with like any touching, or maybe you got a hot spot, like you're sweating in your back, I don't know, from laying down. your palms are sweating, or you're cold. You just observe what you're feeling through your skin. Um, and you don't make anything of it. If you're itchy, you don't interrupt your meditation to scratch the itch. You would simply acknowledge that you have an itching sensation and leave it at that. Now, obviously, if that becomes overbearing, I would say to go ahead and itch it, because if you spend a lot of time ignoring the itch rather than meditating, that's obviously going to be counterproductive. So you kind of work that out on your own, and I would say maybe like it's like building a tolerance. Um, and so in Zazen meditation, you meditate with your eyes open. And I described the whole touching sensations because in Zazen meditation, now you need to ignore any movement with your eyes. Um, and I actually did this once out in the woods, and it was fascinating. And that I, while I wasn't trying to see with my eyes, um, I could, I have to say, I could see everything from left peripheral to right peripheral vision all in one shot. And that actually opened me up to an awareness with my eyesight. And now, every day I'm utilizing my peripheral more and more. I've read into speed reading, and coincidentally, it sounds, the way I interpret the instructions I read, it pretty much tells you to read with your peripheral instead of focusing with the center of your eye on each word. So yeah, that was pretty cool when I did that. I was unaware of it beforehand, so that's why I believe I find it fascinating. Um, and yeah, so obviously when it try to walk and look at the ground and not have your eyes follow a point on the ground, and you will see the challenge in that. Um, I do mention that because I do walking meditation from time to time, and obviously you need to have your eyes open while you're walking, but you treat it the same as in Zazen, where you kind of they tell you to look down at a 45-degree angle, and that's not difficult at all. But when you're walking, you can imagine you want it to be like when you're watching a movie or a video, or whoever may have recorded the ground, like a scene where they focus on the ground speeding by. That's what you want to do in Zazen meditation, or even with walking meditation, except you have to be like the camera. And obviously the camera, as it's speeding by the road, it's not rotating and looking back at all the different things it focuses on, and then looking back up to the path it's following, right? But ultimately, I don't practice Zazen meditation often. From time to time, I may just meditate with my eyes open for whatever reason. I don't have any real driving reasons. If it comes to me one day, hey, let's do Zazen today, that's what I'm doing. Um, excuse me. But yeah, so just be aware. While I focus on mindfulness meditation, there are various other forms. I may do a blog post about this for January, just to put it out there if anybody's interested in reading. Because for me, when I came to meditation, and by luck I stumbled upon instructions for mindfulness meditation, I didn't know there was actually different types of meditation. I definitely feel like I probably would have had a different experience if I started off with something like Zazen meditation. Um, because the inner awareness that comes with mindfulness meditation, and even the external awareness, it's it's great. That's why I stopped doing transcendental meditation, because I felt like I was losing progress on the mindfulness cultivation, and I wanted to dedicate every second um, in my meditation practice to cultivating mindfulness. Um, Now I don't give it much thought. It's just more like, what do I feel like at the moment, and go from there. Um, so yeah, that's worth a look into. If you've been meditating for years and maybe want to try something new, I've heard great results from an individual who tried that, and so um, be open minded when it comes to meditation in general, because this is a simple mental exercise that brings a lot of health benefits with no science backing. It's not like a medicine. There was no research and development to make the pill that maybe lowers cholesterol. It was a simple breathing exercise, and there are studies. And I went through and grabbed a couple of bullets off the internet. Um, and I can attest for these. And that's mainly why I wrote down these bullets. Some of the other ones that I might have came across, especially where the wording was like, some research has shown, or they're believed to be a link between this and meditation, I avoided that stuff, and concentrated on the concrete ones. Okay, so the first one is reduce stress, and I will attest for that. So prior to my meditation practice, uh, I guess I was very controlling, to the point where uh, I don't know if this is minor or major, but like, I had to drive. I couldn't be a passenger in anybody's car because I had to be in control of that car. Um, uh, and when I was out of my comfort zone, I was stressed. So if I wasn't driving, I was backseat driving. Something you don't necessarily have to do, but I was preoccupying myself with trying to control what the other driver may or may not do. Um, Obviously, that's a minor thing, right? As far as in the scheme of life. Um, a bigger example, a more major example would work. Um, I would stress to meet deadlines. I would stress to do the work as 100% as possible. And I know, um, 100% is pretty hard to obtain. And when you are in a management position, responsible for the work being done under you, and you're out of control, where you just receive the product and review it, you can go ahead and put 1 plus 1 together the way I treat the driving. Imagine how I'm dealing with people handing me work that I didn't have a hand in. Okay? Stress, pretty much making something out of nothing. Or it may be something, but you are approaching it in a way that is counterproductive to your body, at least, to getting it done. Because you may what's the word, strain or exert yourself beyond necessity to get something done, and that's additional stress, right? That's like watching a pro do something, and then you go and do it. He or she made it look easy, while you're behind them, and like, what the heck? Why isn't this working? You start to create um, you start to go in a pretty much a comparison and judgment mode. Like, this guy can do it easier than me, which is irrelevant, right? That guy is faster than me. That's irrelevant. Obviously, if this is a competition, there is some relevance, right? But you wouldn't be in a pro versus rookie scenario. Um, and when I say it's irrelevant, especially when you're doing something new, you worry about yourself, and you just need to worry about yourself in general with everything. I mean, that's like people that judge what other people are wearing. Um, I could care less for having the latest stylish clothes or shoes, where there are people who essentially live for having the latest and greatest. And if they were to comment on what I'm wearing, guess what? It's irrelevant. Um, because I know what I want to wear. You know what you want to wear. We're not gonna create stress. So even, hey, we'll leave it at that. I do want to get into a few more bullets here. So the other effect is it reduces anxiety, and so anxiety was also a big thing for me. In that as much of a control freak as I was, obviously when you can't control something that's going to happen later in time, well, I guess I wouldn't say obviously. The way I had put it together in my head before was, I can't control what's going to happen, so I'm going to try my best and hope that it comes out my way. Or when it's not entirely in my control, the potential for various and unknown results would give me anxiety. Here's a big one, and my wife listens to my podcast now, but she could never understand this, and I hope this helps. But she would say, let's do this weekend, or let's do this in a month from now. And whatever it was in my head would just start going haywire. My thought process would almost break, in a way that I'm like, and I freeze, and it's like I'm trying to organize all my thoughts, but it takes a little, it used to take a while, because it would literally break my mind for a second. And then I would get this anxiety of, well, I don't know what I'm going to do that day, or I don't know if something's going to come up between now and then. And I had issues committing to things in the future because of the anxiety. Nowadays, the anxiety, now, I won't say I'm entirely anxiety free, and that I can see the anxiety arise and that I know how to deal with it. Okay? Meditation doesn't necessarily get rid of all these things. In meditation, you become the watcher. You become the watcher of the breath. And when you get distracted, you return, well, not distracted, but when you find your mind has wandered off, you return to your breath. Okay? That's the exercise of meditation. And forgive me for not mentioning that earlier, or if I am re-mentioning it. But that's all. That's all you do in meditation. You say, okay, focus on my breath. Focus on my... You don't say that, but I gotta vocalize the action. So focusing on my breath. I'm focusing on my breath. Oh, I wonder what I'm gonna eat for dinner later. Chicken. That. Oh, I just caught myself drifting off. All right, go back to the breath. Back to the breath. And you're focusing on your breath, and then, did I pay my bills this month? Right? And so you get the point, then you go back to your breath. That's all it is. So you become the watcher of your thoughts. And so outside of your meditation practice, this watching of the thoughts bleeds into your everyday life. Okay? So that's why I can see anxiety come up, but I already know, okay, hey, everything is fine. Look at the calendar. There's nothing there. Book it. If it's something I really don't want to do, then I say no. Even before I had a problem saying no, and that I'd end up, after getting all anxious about it, I'd end up committing to something I didn't even want to do. So, yeah. So that was actually one bullet I had here. So it reduces stress and anxiety, which leads to reduced blood pressure. So I think that is a good thing, physically. And so, if I personally don't suffer from high blood pressure, but I could see it helping. For some reason I picture when somebody gets with high blood pressure getting stressed, a red face. I don't know why, but it helps with that. Less red face. All right. So the next one is reduces depression. And so for me, I used to be depressed about myself. When I really look at it, it all pointed back to myself. I was overweight. I wanted to be fit. I wanted to be a race car driver, but I'm only an amateur. I want to be a millionaire, but I'm only making thousands of dollars. All of that. So, with what I described earlier, the way I approach stress and anxiety with my depression, I guess that really comes from how critical I was. So, I think there's a saying that you are your greatest critic. And back before I was meditating, I was not my greatest critic. I was mean and harsh to myself and didn't realize what that actually amounts to. Nowadays, I would tell somebody, hey, don't think like that. Because I know internally they're cultivating negativity. I never realized that. I always looked at it as there's room to improve, and always looking towards the future, or always looking behind me, but never in the moment. So with meditation, that's what I had come to realize. Um, whatever happened before or the outcome of what just happened is what it is. Nothing more, nothing less. We don't have to call it bad. We don't have to call it good. We don't have to call it positive. We don't have to call it negative. It is what it is. Um, and then, the depression caused from anxiety of looking in the future, just, it was like, I guess, like a lack of self-esteem. Like, I'll never get there. Well, when you tell yourself you'll never get there, you won't get there, right? So, meditation improves your emotional health. And that's my story there for that one. The next benefit is it helps fight addiction. Uh, so for me, I can only really relate here from cigarettes. And I smoked cigarettes for... I remember I started in 9th grade of high school. So I don't know what age that was. So 2001, 18 years ago. I'm 32 now. Wow. So, do the math. 14 years old? Okay. So, I started smoking cigarettes when I was about 14 years old. And, I didn't really try to quit until my adult years. And when I reflect back on it, yeah, that was quite a struggle. And that I think the longest I had quit was maybe 1 to 2 years, in which I had thrown it all away for a concert, because I didn't want to do any drugs. I think this was my first concert, but I didn't want to get into any doing mollies and ecstasy or whatever. So somehow bargained with my wife. Hey, I'm gonna just buy a cigarette for the weekend, a pack of cigarettes for the weekend, and I didn't stop after that. So the 1 to 2 years that I did quit at that point, I threw it all away. And there were other times that I had quit, but that was the longest, which I can't even recall. It was 1 to 2 years. Um, and so fast forward to May of this year. So that's 4 months after I started meditating. I had quit smoking cigarettes. Like, I don't even have an analogy ready here. But I did it like it was nothing. Just up in one day, stopped smoking cigarettes. Um, there were some driving factors behind that. But I didn't have an issue with withdrawals, everything that comes with addiction. Um, and so that's my experience with meditation helping with addiction, and actually, I've got another example, but I'll save that for a later episode or a blog article. Um, the next bullet, excuse me again, increase mindfulness and self-awareness. And so that's kind of what I've been raving about here. That's what I've founded Realeyes The World based on. Um, and so if real quick, mindfulness is pretty much your awareness of your entire body. Okay. And that, okay, like say you're walking. Okay, I'm walking. I am aware I am walking. Okay. My knees, my feet, as I walk. This is all one motion. However, we know inside you've got your brain's firing off muscles, there's coordination involved. And so when you're mindful, like for example, mindful of walking, you're paying attention to how your knee swings open, how your knee makes contact, your heel makes contact with the ground first, how your foot rolls onto the ball of its foot, and then the other leg does the same thing. Mindfulness is being aware of whatever it is that you're being mindful of in its raw form. For me, the best example I have for this one is my weight loss. Um, when I started meditating, I didn't go gung ho on exercising and dieting. It just made sense the amount of what I was eating, versus the amount of energy I spend every day. And so obviously with the desk job, you don't need to spend much energy, right? You're sitting down. You're only using your brain and your fingers to type, and that's it. Um, and so that in itself just came together like that. I mean, that logically adds up, and I could not do that before meditation. I don't know why. My weight, oops, sorry. My weight went up and down throughout the years. I would primarily say between 200 and 220 pounds. I used to lie that, or yeah, I guess it was a lie, but it was more ignorance. Like I didn't want to acknowledge the fact, and so I never really told people when I was over 200 pounds. So I always just tell people, yeah, I'm 200, I'm 200. But truthfully, it did fluctuate more between 200 and 220. Um, there was one point 3 years ago, I got down to 180 pounds using Weight Watchers. Um, that was quite the experience in that it kind of opened my eyes into not necessarily calorie counting, but I guess grouping the foods, like what foods are healthy and promoted to eat abundance of versus what's unhealthy and should really be eaten in moderation or very low moderation. Give you an example. You would get, and this is the old point system, and I'm throwing out random numbers, but I want to give you the example of the extreme. So in Weight Watchers, depending on your goal, your current weight, etc., there's a point system. So you get 30 points to eat for the day. And so you could eat 3 ounces of chicken breast. That's only 2 points. Now, you take a Reese's, the two cup pack, right? Your regular old Reese's, two in a pack. They would wait at like 12 points. So when you're trying to stick within your 30 points, you're like, well, do I want to spend a third of my points on this one candy bar? Whereas I could eat 9 ounces of chicken for 6 points, or what is a pound? 16 ounces. So, um, whatever. Do the math. But you see the extreme there, right? And so that's what I really took away from Weight Watchers. Um, but besides that, I threw all those results away. I don't remember why. I just got lazy and loose with following the app and logging all the things I'm eating. And before I knew it, I was back to the 200 to 220 range. Um, so with the mindfulness eating, how much I need to intake versus how much I'm outputting, um, and then what I'm eating, obviously. So, the example of the chocolate bar versus the chicken, is a conscious choice I make every day to this day. Um, I'm mindful of what I put in my body. The self-awareness. So self-awareness is, I would line that up with mindfulness. However, when I say self-awareness, I do intend to refer to enlightenment. Um, Although it does come in levels. So yeah, it one of the other benefits is the increase in self-awareness, and that, okay, I ate this. I got a. My mother bought me a 2 pound Reese's cup chocolate bar, or half pound. I don't know. It's really big. They're kind of like novelty items for the holidays. Uh, but say I ate one of those cups, um, and I know I would, because I still binge on sweets from time to time. Um, but I would feel like crap after. My self awareness and the mindfulness is, ooh, this doesn't make my stomach sit right. And so when you learn things with meditation, you simply learn it. It's not like, oh, I had a bad experience eating that Reese's cup one time. It's, no, I know I shouldn't eat the whole thing, the half pound cup. I should only eat a quarter of it, or just a couple of spoonfuls, whatever the case is. You're being self-aware. You're being mindful of what you're putting in your body. Um, and so on this bullet, the mindfulness and self-awareness, it ultimately increases your ability to express compassion. Compassion is a pretty big thing in Buddhism, as far as following the path, and how I guess the ideal way of how everybody should treat each other. Excuse me. But uh, when you're mindful and self-aware, you, just like you watch what you're doing with your body when you eat, you watch how your actions affect others. I don't say your thoughts, because only you can see your thoughts. But your actions, like your tone, we all know we can express slight hints of irritability or anger or happiness through the tone of our voice. Um, if you aren't aware of it, well, here's your awareness lesson in it. Um, but things like that get picked up by other people, and they get interpreted, and so you become mindful of how those type of anything really you do affects the other person. Um, and so with compassion, you start to tune your actions where you're bringing joy to people versus any type of negativity, like, oh, I'm irritated with you, go away. How do you think that makes the other person feel? Or maybe your kid wants something, and you're busy on your phone, and when they finally get annoying enough that you put the phone down and you yell at them, what do you want? How do you think that makes them feel? Okay? I'm not saying put yourself in their shoes, but this is what mindfulness and self-awareness is. Okay? It's the observation of these type of things. Okay. The other health benefit to meditation deepens your concentration and your attention span. So, when you start practicing, you might find your mind wanders a lot. That's perfectly normal. Don't let it discourage you or make you feel like you're doing something wrong. Just keep coming back to the breath. Uh, it the let's see the frequency in which your mind would wander decreases as you practice meditation. Um, I'll admit myself that my meditation sessions aren't 100% breath. My mind still wanders. I think about what I can do for this website and the podcast and the brand, Realeyes The World. Uh, but you realize, no pun intended there, but you realize this stuff can wait. This and there's a time for thinking and planning. That's not during your meditation session. And so, as you continue your practice, your ability to concentrate and focus on one thing increases in greater intervals. Okay? And so, all of this adds up to a better quality of life, right? All of these benefits. Um, Reduce stress, reduce anxiety, reduce depression. If you're having an addiction problem, it helps you get past that. None of this stuff here, I can't even see how it could be flipped as a con, um, or a negative point about meditating. Um, I forgot one. Meditation is free, so that helps get rid of any excuses of I don't have the money to, right? No, you don't need money. You need time. You need to find time. And so I I mean, people could go on retreats or hire a teacher or take lessons. Yeah, that costs money. But when you go self-exploring on your own, it's free. Um, and it improves the quality of your life. I don't really, from my experience, I can't say anything negative about meditation. Even all of the time I've dedicated to it thus far, um, I can't the word regrets not necessarily in my vocabulary anymore, and that I wouldn't regret anything in the past anymore. Everything is what it is. But I don't regret. I don't regret the half hour to hour and a half that I put into meditation every day. Um, Now, one of the cons that I can recall, and I feel like it's maybe the only legit con for meditation, is that it could uh, increase anxiety or depression. Um, but when I hear that, I feel like wherever that observation was made, that the subject of that observation may not have been meditating properly. The only way I can see you increasing anxiety or depression during meditation is if you are thinking about those things. Okay? Now, perhaps you can't help but those thoughts come up. Um, but I think as part of the practice of returning to your breath, uh, you need to get on that train quick to get out of your head. For me, Um, that wasn't so much of an issue, and obviously, I started off the episode that what may work for me may not work for you, or feel it out and tune it to your likings. Um, but that's the only con that I saw that I felt was of legitimate concern. Um, no others come to mind. Now, from my experience, your limbs falling asleep, initially that was a con to me, and that as soon as my legs fell asleep when I started doing sitting meditation, I couldn't get through the sensations. Um, but then it turned out that was just a mental game of just like watching the itch. You watch your limb go to sleep, and that's it. Go back to your breath. uh, it, it's easier said than done, obviously, right? But it that I would not call a con. Um, so that's the end of that list, and we're gonna go ahead and start wrapping this up here. But one last word of advice for meditation. Um, if you, the listener, do decide to go in and try meditation, or you already meditate, great. But if you're new to it, go in with no expectations. Okay, I'm not going to tell you you're going to feel your third eye open, or you're going to feel your chakras open. Um, it's irrelevant to you. What's relevant is that you sit down with yourself and you find that breath, and you find your focus, and you go from there. These health benefits, again, don't happen overnight. These are things that you come to realize. Um, Meditation helps you be open-minded, even though I encourage people to go into it with an open mind. But really, the open-mindedness is also a byproduct of meditation. So don't set yourself up for failure. That's kind of what I used to do before I started meditating. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go in and meditate. Well, this isn't what I did, but don't do this. I'm gonna go in and meditate, and then I'm gonna feel better tomorrow. I'm gonna be a happier person. I'm gonna be able to make my $1,000,000 now and buy a Porsche and buy a mansion. No, you're already setting yourself up for a failure, in which I think we all know what happens when you fail. Um, but when you start meditating, failure is not even a thing. It's a happening. If you're trying to do something, you get back up and try again. There's a lot of sayings or expressions that have new meaning to me after I started meditating. Like, if you get knocked down, get back up and keep going. Well, we all heard that when we were even toddlers, maybe. But how much of us are actually doing that? I wasn't. I was not doing that before, even though I could have read it. Somebody could have told me, "Oh, it's okay, man. Just keep going. You might not have got that promotion or whatever it is I wanted. I might not have got that Porsche, but it'll come." But when you're unconscious to a point, and I don't know what that point is, but if you're unconscious like me, you could hear those things and they make no difference. Like, I like this example, the Let It Go song from Frozen. That is teaching kids, very young age, hey, if there's something going on, just let it go. Let it all go. Let it be what it is. You can't do anything about it. Just let it go. I knew that song before I started meditating. Did I let things go? No, I didn't. So meditation gives you a new set of ears and an open mind to take information in. So, um, if you made it this far into the podcast, guys, I really appreciate it. Um, check out the blog website. I made a page and not a blog post because I want this page to be a foundation of the website. It is the quick start meditation guide. Okay, check that out. Even if you're already meditating, it'll give you some insight to the technique that I use. Uh, I know I wrote that as a beginner's guide or for newbies, but I'm thinking of it now, and I don't think there's anything I deviate from in that guide. There might be some intermediate advanced tips I can add to it, which I wanted to do in another post. But I pretty much still meditate the same way as I outlined in that guide. Okay? Also, for the month of January, I'm still trying to work this out with only 5 days left in December. But I want to do a meditation challenge on social media. So I don't want to throw my ideas out there right now because it could change. But follow me on social media. I have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Whatever's your preference. I plan to cross-post it across those three sites. And I guess YouTube also, if you're a heavy YouTuber. I plan to cross-post the challenge across those 4 social media sites. So if you're not following me yet, follow me through your favorite one or all of them. It's up to you. And look out for that. Because by the next podcast, I'll probably be talking about how it's in progress. So, all right, guys. I think that's going to be it today. I hope everybody enjoyed this discussion on meditation, and it may even have struck your curiosity. I hate to be like a poster child for meditation, but it's brought nothing but good things to me in my life. I'm very happy now. I'm physically doing well and emotionally doing well. And when new things come up, they don't stop me in my tracks. I hope that others can have that same experience. Alright, thanks guys. We'll catch you on the next one.